Welcome. This is Aleister Nacht. Tonight I've got a very special guest with me. His name is Lucifer LeGivorden, and he is the founder and high priest of the Satanic Thulian Society. So, Lucifer, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Thank you for spending time with me this evening.
Oh, not a problem, not a problem.
So, the Satanic Thulian Society, how many members do you guys have?
Well, we normally don't disclose our membership numbers, but we have pretty close to about 50, give or take, across the United States.
You're actually located in Carolina, is that right?
Yes, South Carolina.
Okay. Abbeville, I believe, right?
Pretty close to there. Actually, we are in Abbeville County, but we are in a very small town. There is literally no traffic lights, and there's less than 100 people who live in this town. And
Wow.
our home is called Firethorn Manor, and it's located on almost 4 acres of property. And the room you see me sitting in right now is called the Black Parlor, which is our central ritual chamber.
Nice. Nice.
You can see our altar behind me right here, with our famous trap bath above it, and it is actually gaining popularity. A lot of people love the trap bath, and a few of the other interesting items on there.
Very nice. Very nice. So, how long have you been on the left-hand path?
Well, I didn't start on the left-hand path. I was raised Christian, as most people were. And by the age of, well, I had a near-death experience when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I still have the scars from it. A Great Dane bit me in the head, and well, I died for about 20 minutes, and I had an experience that changed my viewpoint on how I view things, and I became a very uber Christian, actually. By the time I was 12 years old, I left Christianity. I realized that what I had seen was true, and I started studying different religions. And by the time I was about 14, I found Wicca, and I had become part. I had managed. We had moved to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania at that point, and I had started apprenticing under the New Force Coven's American branch there. And for anybody who knows New Force Coven, that was the coven founded by Dr. Gerald Gardner directly. So my Wiccan heritage was going directly back to the man himself, in those studies. I apprenticed for over 3 years to them, and I got ordained through them eventually. And during my final years of apprenticeship, I found Satanism initially through a friend, and that was in 1997, and just before Anton LaVey died. And I had a really positive experience there, but I wouldn't become a Satanist till about probably 10 years later. And that's when I went from being a Wiccan. I was feeling very restless in my Wiccan studies. It just wasn't going anywhere for me. And I was in a bookstore, I saw the Satanic Bible, and I was like, you know what? I had a really good experience with that last time. Let me see what this is about. So I picked it up and I read it, and I realized I had always been living my life that way. That was the viewpoints that I was having. And I got lucky with my first copy of the Satanic Bible. It was not Peter Gilmore's atheist introduction. It was Burton Wolf's second introduction. So it had a lot to say there, and it was really interesting. And I felt that was much more authentic. And there was also a few other lines in that Satanic Bible that definitely a lot of people don't realize, make it very clear that what most people think LaVey Satanism is now is, it made it very clear that it wasn't. So I vibrated with that. Unfortunately, that Satanic Bible got stolen, and I ended up having to buy a replacement. Guess whose introduction is in that replacement?
Gilmore's.
Yeah. Which is one of the most disingenuous introductions to a book.
Yeah. 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 So you guys, you are theistic Satanists, correct?
Yes, we're theistic LaVeyan. So we hate the fact that we have to say theistic LaVeyan, or even theistic Satanist, because, well, Satanism being a religion, that by definition means you have faith in something, which means you're not an atheist. But so many people want to be atheists and claim to be Satanists. And I guess it sounds better than calling oneself an atheist or a materialist or a humanist. I mean, it sounds a lot more entertaining, but at the end of the day, that's not what they are. They're not Satanists.
Yeah, I've always found that confusing and a bit amusing in a way, that someone that does not believe in Satan would call themselves a Satanist.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the way we view it is, as I just explained it, Satanism is a religion. Religions are philosophies. Religions are the oldest form of politics. That's what it was used for way back in the beginning, and all the way up until actual politics took over. But a religion is a faith or a belief in something outside of themselves, be it a doctrine, a creed, an anthropomorphic being, including a sky daddy and whatnot. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're believing in, the Christian God, the Hindu gods, the Egyptian gods, or even the man downstairs, like we do, Celtic gods, or any of that. If you have a belief, if you call yourself Satanist, you are taking on a religion. If you have a religion, you have a belief in something. If you have a belief in something, you are theistic automatically. And that means you cannot be an atheist. If you are an atheist, you are without belief, you are without faith. And a religion is about having faith.
So how does LaVey tie into your practice?
LaVey was the founder of modern Satanism. He brought it out of the closet. Yeah, there was other covens and whatnot before him that had their own systems. But by that point, almost none of them survived, and almost none of them had any documentation. And if there's any covens nowadays, such as the Brotherhood or whatnot, that say that they were older than LaVey, they haven't presented forward any documentation. LaVey's system, LaVey's Satanism, is clearly and publicly documented. We have the Satanic Bible. We have the clear documentation going back before 1966, when he was doing all of his other studies. We know exactly where he came from. We know exactly what he was about. And we have it all the way up till his death in 1997, and further on since then to nowadays. So following LaVey's outline and tradition is critical, but we also go further. We study Michael Aquino, we study Setianism, we incorporate almost every splinter branch of LaVeyan Satanism that there is, all with the assumption that there is indeed a real Satan in some way, shape, or form.
Well said. So I noticed in looking on your website, you made reference to pseudo-Satanist or pseudo-Satanism. What do you mean by that?
well, literally atheist Satanists. You know, people who claim to be atheists, they claim to be non-theists, and I think we both know where that group is coming into play there. All non-theism is using that term is just trying to use a fancy word, say, oh, I'm an atheist, I'm a humanist, I'm a materialist. Why don't you just call it what it is? It's not that you're non-theistic. It's that you're an atheist. It's that you don't actually have a belief in this. You are using it for your own personal gain. You're using it as a fashion statement. You know, I'm sorry, but I don't go running around. I like Gothic culture. I like, you know, the spikes. I like dressing in black and whatnot occasionally. But if you see me on an average day, you know, just like how you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt right now, on an average day, you could see me in a Baby Yoda shirt, or you could see me in a Jurassic Park shirt, and I look like a soccer dad. You know, I'm not. I mean, you'll see me puffing on a cigar, driving a riding mower around my yard, just like any other soccer dad out there or whatnot. You know, you'll see me roughhousing with my dogs, and I'm not sitting here wearing huge big spikes, wearing corpse makeup or any of that other stuff. No. You know, most of the time you'll be able to tell if I'm a Satanist as if you see me wearing one of my pendants or see one of my tattoos, which, as you can tell, I mostly keep covered up.
Yeah, I did a podcast on the occult and being occult. And I think a lot of people miss that subtlety of, you know, some things are made to show and other things are not. Some things are just not for public consumption.
Exactly. I mean, I went through my Gothic phase where I would wear black nail polish all the time, where I would do up makeup and my hair was dyed black, and I went through that phase. I think we all did it in some way, some shape or fashion. I also went through a hippie phase.
Yeah.
But
at
the end of the
I
day,
did too. I stayed in that phase, I think.
Well, one wouldn't know from seeing some of your pictures on there. You rock that corpse paint sometimes pretty good.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like sitting down and listen to a little bit of Grateful Dead or Fish or any of them older bands, Janis Joplin. So, you know.
Right.
I used to hang out in a head shop when I was a teenager. I loved it.
So one thing that really resonated with me on your website was that Anton LaVey was not an atheist. And
No, he never said he was an atheist.
Yeah,
and I know right now people are screaming, well, there was this article in the 80s where he said, I am an atheist, to a waiter. What people fail to realize is that author of that article later turned around because LaVey got pissed at that article because he never showed up for that meeting. That author actually had to apologize to LaVey and openly recant it, which Gilmore ignores. Gilmore's flaunting that same article around saying, oh, look, he said it right here. Well, first off, you look at the situation, you think about all the flack he was getting at that point. He had put up a security fence outside his house. He had put up security cameras around his house because people were threatening to hurt him and his family. On top of that, you know, he was in a public restaurant, supposedly, and a waiter was giving him shit. What's one way to diffuse the situation? Oh, I don't actually believe in any of that stuff. I'm an atheist. Even if he did actually say that, if you look at the situation, it's clear that it's very disingenuous. Now, from what I understand, and I've spoken to the author of the article, he flat out told me that LaVey never made that meeting LaVey was never in that restaurant, and that encounter never happened, which means he never said, I am an atheist. Until this person can actually show me a first-hand letter from Anton LaVey that says, I am an atheist, I have every other bit of evidence, and we publish it on our website. We publish it in my books. It's out there free for everybody to see. And they can go and they can talk to Carla LaVey. They can talk to Stanton LaVey, people directly from Anton's family, who both have flat out said, even Blanche Barton went on record and flat out said, Anton LaVey really did believe in Satan. All these people who knew him, who lived with him, have gone on record, and they've all said that he actually did believe in something. The only person who's been running around saying he didn't actually believe in something, that he didn't actually believe in Satan, is guess who? Peter Gilmore. And if anybody actually does their research and speak with the LaVey family, like I have, they will flat out say, Anton did not want Gilmore anywhere near the leadership position. He was pretty much a pissant. He was introduced to Anton via Blanche. And that's how he met, how him and Anton met. Peter Gilmore, he was humored by Anton LaVey whenever he would visit, which was very rarely. And the way that he got the Church of Satan is he bought it from Blanche. He actually bought it from her. It was not given to him. He bought it.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yep. I actually have documents from the California courts, which I have shared with Stanton LaVey, that brings into question even Gilmore's ownership of the Church of Satan. I'm not going to go into any further details other than that. What Stanton does with those documents, with that evidence, is between him and his attorneys.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. I've been studying this stuff for well over the better part of 16, 17 years now, going on 2 decades.
Interesting. So also on your website, it said that you've performed an exorcism or exorcisms. I'm not sure. Is it plural or singular?
I have performed 2 exorcisms.
Okay.
And I've been a part of a third one when I was an apprentice in Wicca years ago, back in Wilkes-Barre. That was my first ever encounter with it. STS has 2 exorcists on documentation. Both myself and King Blackfire are authorized exorcists. We are trained for exorcism. With me, it was a hobby. I studied it loosely, personally, myself. And then an incident occurred later on that required me to actually perform it. And then a second one later on also occurred where I performed a second exorcism. So yes, we have the ability to perform exorcisms. You can actually find our exorcism ritual in my book, The Black Grimoire, which I actually have a copy sitting right here.
Okay. All right.
You can get this on Lulu or Amazon, and the exorcism ritual is right here.
Okay.
I am currently working on a sequel to this called The Red Grimoire, which hopefully will be due out by the end of the year.
So how many books have you written?
I have 4 books published right now. 3 to Satanism, and 1 is a personal novel, which is completely fictional. I have the Satanic Testament, which has gone under 2 subsequent editions. When I first published it, I published it in There's the original publishing of it. I published this in 2011. And then when I opened up STS back in 2020, I got to work and expanded it with a second edition, which was an expanded revised edition. You can actually see the difference there.
Yeah.
And a year later, I took articles that I've written over the course of a year and further studies, and I created the third edition, which is where I'm leaving it off at, which is this one. And now it's over 500 pages long.
Wow.
One of the things that inspired the third edition to be created is years ago when I just wrote the first one, the first edition of this, I started speaking with Michael Aquino directly via email, and I still had those emails, and I had found them, and I shared those emails with our council and certain members, and we all agreed that he had given me permission to use the Diabolicon in one of my books, and I spoke with a few other authors and whatnot about the legality of that permission, whether or not it still stood and whatnot, and everybody agreed that yes, as long as I had those emails where I could take them into a court of law, I still had legal permission to use Michael Aquino's Diabolicon in my books, or in a book. And while it wasn't the book that I wanted to put out initially, we all agreed that yes, my Satanic Testament still fell into the same basic description of what the book was. And so I added in the Diabolicon, along with the ninth solstice message, which we felt could be covered underneath the same permissions from a certain point of view, as long as it was done with the same respect and accreditation. And then I also wrote up my own version of the Enochian Keys. And so all of that is actually in third edition, as well as a few new articles, including our version of the Lex Satanicus, which is based off of something that Anton LaVey was working on, but it never came to public light in a full completed format. I looked at it and I studied everything about him. We read everything, and we wrote up our Lex Satanicus based on that, especially based on his views and opinions.
And people can find that on your website.
Yes.
I actually read through that. There's probably a question that people are going to bring up is, what is your position on abortion? So it's covered in the Lex Satanicus, but tell our viewers and our listeners.
Well, this was a really deep topic that we had to explore. Now, on a personal level, I used to be pro-choice years ago, but when my son was about to be born, he was born 15 weeks early. He was right at the bare lines. He's a Johns Hopkins baby. And my fiance, Diana, the pregnancy almost killed her. And so they were talking to me about taking the baby early and whatnot. And they said that there was a chance that neither one of them could survive. And so I had to soul search myself. And Diana and I had both discussed it and everything. And we agreed that if there's a medical necessity, then it must be done, but outside of that, we felt that anybody who's a responsible adult in our modern society, there's really no reason for it. I looked into it. I looked into both sides of the excuse. of about rape victims and incest. I looked at all the statistics and whatnot, and overall, I found that in almost every single instance where an abortion was performed, it was all cosmetic. There was next to no accounting for rape victims. There was next to no accounting for incest victims. That made up, both of them together, made up less than 5% of the total abortions in a year in the United States. The rest of that, the other 95% of abortions, were cosmetic.
Wow.
There was no need for it. Think
Wow.
about that. Less than 5% either has a medical necessity, is a rape victim, or is an incest victim. Less than 5%. And then the
Wow.
rest is just women who refuse to take birth control, and yet they wanted to go have sex. I felt that a responsible adult, a responsible Satanist especially, if we're going to go out and we're going to have sex, you know, like we do for pleasure as human beings, you know, we take joy out of it, and we're not sitting there looking to become parents, then they would be responsible enough to take birth control, to be proactively preventative. And men too. I keep a condom in my wallet. You know, I hate condoms, but if I need it, it's there. If something's going on, I always have my wallet with me. Boom, right there. I'm taking at least that much effort on my part to make sure I'm not transmitting any sexually transmitted diseases or STDs, or I'm not bringing anything home, and I'm not getting anybody else knocked up. And so
Right.
it's just simple common sense. When I studied it, when I looked into it from a satanic point of view, I found out that was Anton LaVey's point of view as well. He was very much so against abortion and made it very loud and clear on at least 2 occasions. One in his letters to the devil, and then later on in one of his books, his last book that came out after he died. There is an article in there where he makes it very clear he does not stand for abortion. He never did. So you had an article from the 70s, and then you had an article that was later published in 1997 that he wrote later in life. So he never changed his viewpoints. He was
Interesting.
definitely against abortion, and so are we. We feel that a responsible adult or responsible Satanist, be it male or female, will take that proactively preventative measure, and there will never need to be an abortion there. That if a Satanist gets pregnant, that if a satanic woman gets pregnant because she wanted to get pregnant, she made that choice.
Taking responsibility, right?
Responsibility for the responsible, that's one of the big things about LaVey Satanism. And then on top of that, there's the Satanic Rules of the Earth, where it says, do not harm little children. It doesn't say, do not harm post-born children, do not harm pre-born children. It just says, do not harm little children. Well, what's a baby in the womb? Just because it's inside the mother still, does that mean it's any less of a child? I don't think so. They still have a face. They still have hands, toes. You know, they dream, they kick, they suck their thumb. They have their own minds.
Yeah.
Just because they have an umbilical cord where they share nutrients with their mother, that's symbiosis. And to hear people from TST saying, "Oh, a baby, a preborn baby is not a baby; it's a parasite." I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Yeah.
then on top of that, I started looking into the different methods of abortion. And I was like, oh man, this is cruelty. We wouldn't do this to Jeffrey Dahmer. We wouldn't do this to a serial killer. We wouldn't do this to a person who cut people up and eaten them.
People are pro-abortion right up until birth. But if they ever saw how that whole thing truly happened at that point in time, they're absolutely killing a child.
They are.
Absolutely killing a
They are
child in the most brutal
violating
way.
They're
Yeah.
completely violating our religious dictums. And I used to live when I was a little kid, I used to live in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. This was before they were really, really tolerant of the West. This was back in the early 80s. We had to live in a compound for Westerners and Europeans. We couldn't just get an apartment in the middle of Abu Dhabi or Dubai. No. We had to live in specific buildings that were secured. We couldn't go anywhere without security. We had to have special taxi drivers. And I remember one day, all the taxi drivers were driving people back and everybody was being called back. And we had military, we had Navy SEALs guarding the gates to our compound because the locals outside were rioting. They were pulling taxi drivers who were right outside our gates out of their taxis, pouring gasoline on them and lighting them on fire. And me personally, Christians have stated that us Satanists, we use abortion for human sacrifice to sacrifice babies in satanic rituals. And then what does TST go and do? They created an abortion ritual. Everything that Wiccans, pagans, and Satanists had been fighting for decades to dispel the myth of. And in one maneuver, one fell swoop, TST sends us back to the Middle Ages.
You know, that's a good point, because back in the 80s, that was all about the satanic panic and all about baby breeders and all this stuff, and, you know, satanic rituals, killing the baby right there on the altar, you know, after birth and everything. It's, wow, you make a good point with that.
Yeah. So any logical Satanist would stay as far away from the subject of abortion, or even as far away from an abortion clinic as possible. They wouldn't be caught dead there unless it's an absolute dire emergency. Unless they're dying, literally the pregnancy is killing them and they don't have a choice. That's the only way you would get a reasonable satanic woman into an abortion clinic, because she has no further choice. She's going to be proactively preventative so that she never has to do it. And you want to know another thing? How much do these abortions cost? How much does it cost a person to go get an abortion? You got a number?
I have no idea.
It costs anywhere between $1,200 to $15,000. Do you know how much it costs to get birth control? At the most expensive kind of birth control was over $2,000. But the least expensive kind of birth control, which is the IUD or Mirena, it's the one that goes into the cervix, is about $240. But here's the kicker. If you have health insurance, any kind of medical insurance, including state-provided medical insurance, it's 100% free. A homeless woman, strung out on drugs, with only state-provided health care, can go to a gynecologist and get the absolute most expensive type of preventative birth control, 100% free. You know, even if you're not talking about morals or anything else, you start talking the financial side of things. Birth control is far cheaper. Being preventative is far cheaper. It's better than spending anywhere from $1,200 to $15,000, depending on the kind of abortion you're getting. The cheapest type of abortion, which is a DNC, in the early onset of pregnancy, costs about $1,200. Somebody is always going to be paying for an abortion. It doesn't matter what. Now, if those investors look at the cost, does it cost more to get an abortion? Does it cost more to use birth control? They're going to be like, birth control every time. This is going to make us money and save us money.
Yeah.
That if a person does not want a baby, that's fine. Render the womb powerless. We actually view a woman's womb as the ultimate sacred temple.
So how do you see, I think we've touched a little bit on the Satanic Temple. What are your thoughts on that organization?
They're not Satanists. Literally, most of them are not actually Satanists. They are literally Wiccans. They are literally pagans. Some of them aren't even atheists, and they're sitting there calling themselves non-theists and atheists. And they're being completely contradictory to everything that they stand for.
Do you see them more as an activist group or a club?
They're
or
definitely an active. They're right up there with BLM and Antifa.
I see.
And in some cases, in a lot of cases, they are both BLM and Antifa as well. And I'm sorry, but Antifa, they were BLM and Antifa back in 2020 were lighting cities on fire. They were rioting in mostly peaceful protests.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah, didn't they occupy like Seattle or Portland?
Yep.
Take control of the town and the courtyard or the courthouse?
Their own autonomous zone there, and the city let them do it. The government let them do it until finally Trump said enough is enough. Until finally people said enough was enough, and they sent in the National Guard to break it all up.
So, did the health crisis? Did you see an uptick in your membership due to that, or has it remained pretty much the same?
Well, I might have, but we were just opening up during that whole situation there.
Okay.
You know, we were just starting out. We pretty much started out right in the middle of that. And so, of course, everybody was online. It certainly did affect on how we did our services. We went from having a few in-person services to doing almost completely monthly online rituals, you know, over Facebook, and, you know, having them live streamed where people could interact and whatnot, communicate via chat and make requests or whatnot. We do a monthly high mass literally via live stream, and it's all over our Facebook page.
And people seem to be receptive to that.
We had a really good response to it. A lot of people really like it. They because most Satanists were so spread out. We don't often get together in person where we can interact with each other. There's different groups and whatnot, cells here and there that have different beliefs and everything, but no one cohesive central group that everybody can meet at in person all the time. And so having an online monthly ritual event, just like how Christians go to church every weekend, we do it once a month, sometimes twice a month. And you know, our other grottos, we have grottos in multiple states. We have grottos in Florida, Tennessee, Ohio, and New England, as well as South Carolina. We have people able to, put out multiple different events, online where people can come and they can interact, they can participate, they can light their personal home altars, they can watch on their cell phone or on their laptop or their desktop computer, and participate in the rite of the chalice, or request a destruction ritual and get a coven setting from distance, all focusing on that one thing. And we've had very effective results from it, you know, both magically and personally.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, it's, you know, as things evolve, I think it's very important for the left-hand path to stay up with that.
Social media has certainly benefited everybody. It's made us more able to talk to each other and enable us to interact at longer distances, but it's also allowed in a lot of problems at the same time. This is problems from other countries and whatnot, and this is problems from within our own country. It certainly spread a lot of disinformation where people don't know what it is, you know, anymore, but it's allowed a lot of information to be interconnected and understood, and more books to be read, and authors to be able to be published better. I mean, certainly without certain print on demand, you know, and social media, I wouldn't be around. I know you wouldn't be around. We can be our own publishers.
Right, right.
That's a benefit, but a negative would be, again, take a look at TST. Take a look at Gilmore. He's spreading all of his myths and lies. You know, a lot of the pseudo-Satanists, you know, social media allows a lot of that pseudo-Satanism, that leftist Marxist-based theology into our spheres, into our circles, our social communities. And people will resonate with it. Why? Because it sounds good on paper. Just because it sounds good on paper doesn't mean it's good in actual application.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you read Marx, it sounds great. Sounds like utopia.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful and wonderful. But
Yeah,
when you actually look at whenever anybody's actually tried to apply what Marx says, you're talking communism, you're talking, you know, Stalin, Lenin, you're talking, you know, countries going almost completely belly up. Many have gone completely belly up. And Karl Marx, he was a nice guy, but he was a rich playboy. He never knew a day of hardship in his life. He never had to go out and work in the factories. He never had to do anything like that. He was an idealist. He was a complete idealist. He wasn't a realist. He was an idealist. And idealists, they're dangerous. They're not dangerous because they know how to hurt people. They're dangerous because they don't understand facts, because they have an ideal. And ironically, it's a statement from Christianity that while we would take offense to it, we can also understand the canonation and the meaning behind it. And that is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You see people like BLM, TST, Antifa, and all these people, you know, Ocasio-Cortez. Ocasio-Cortez is the best example of good intentions gone wrong. Look at her, what her good intentions got her with Amazon and New York City. She cost New York City thousands of jobs just because she thought Amazon was getting a tax break.
yeah.
She thought that New York City was going to give Amazon $3 billion or something like that. When instead that was actually what was going to be going back into the economy from Amazon, or something to that effect. And she cost them that whole contract. Why? From a place of good intention. She meant well, she just didn't understand. And that's a prime example of good intentions gone wrong.
So let me ask you, why do you think the mainstream media is so far left? I mean, not just far left, but like radically left.
I think that it's due to many, many years of social brainwashing. Um, there was a president, I forget, I think it might have been Lyndon B. Johnson, but don't quote me on this, who was recorded. He was a Democratic president, and he was very angry that he had lost the next election, and or something to that effect. And he turned around and he was recorded saying, and this supposedly was in the Oval Office, I will have those ends, Niggers, voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And after that, you saw an entire change in the Democratic Party's narrative and how they went about things and what they did. And it seeped into pop culture, into media, into the way news was. And it was just because the Democrats were supposedly for the people, whereas the Republicans were for the globalists. They were for the corporations. Well, it's flipped around where the Democrats were taking over everything. They were monopolizing, and then they started injecting their narrative into everything. By the time that they actually decided that they were going to make their move on something, they had they had their fingers in everything. They could manipulate the narrative. So when we see the Democrats touting a party line, we start seeing the media making the same talking points. And it's pretty interesting because you can look at Tim Cass. I don't know if you listen to Tim Cass or watch anything that he does.
No.
And you listen to many like Fox as well. They're known for this. They'll start showing clips of everybody touting the same party line. They'll show like 10, 15 different clips from different news outlets that are all leftist news outlets. And they literally say the exact same thing. Mostly peaceful, mostly peaceful, mostly peaceful. Or this was an assassination attempt, an assassination attempt, an assassination attempt. Or it doesn't really matter what. I can't really think of all the different ones that I've heard, but they do this all the time and everything. And it's literally, you can tell these people who are leftist media get handed a script from somewhere, and they are all reading literally the same script. There has to be something written down where it's, you've got to talk about things being, these riots being mostly peaceful. These people are oppressed, da 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 da. And it's just the same script handed to every single outlet. And it's really creepy.
Yeah, it is. It's scary. I mean, it really is. So I was reading on your website, you have the 3rd annual All Hallows Gala coming up. What is that all about?
When we started up STS, we started on October 29th. And we, for several years now, even before then, have been performing what is called the All Hallows Mass. This is a ritual that I wrote personally. And you can actually find videos of it on YouTube and whatnot. And it is a really wonderful ceremony where we honor the dead. And the All Hallows Gala, or our Halloween, hell parties and whatnot, we have been holding Halloween gatherings since we opened up. Literally, we opened up the doors to STS officially on October 29th. Our first ritual that we ever did was to ordain one of our longest standing members from before we were even STS. And that day was very significant because it was 23 years to the day of Anton LaVey's death. And what was even more significant is we did even more studying. And I actually explained this in my book, The Satanic Testament, that when Anton LaVey died, it was a new moon cycle starting on October 29th. When we opened up our doors, it was a super blue moon, full moon cycle to the day. I mean, the whole cycle lined up perfectly. I'm not much for astrology or astronomy or whatnot, but that was a little bit too much of an interesting coincidence to ignore.
And what can people expect if they come to that? What kind of activities do you do? A ritual or what is that like?
Multiple different rituals. It all depends on what the moon phase is. If we're doing a high mass, or if everybody wants, we can do a black mass. That is a possibility, though we usually reserve black mass for Walpurgis Nacht. But one thing they can always expect is on Halloween night is that we are definitely going to do the All Hallows Mass. And we can go, our Halloween holidays technically begin on October 29th, and we end them on November 1st. So we can be doing rituals all throughout that time and whatnot. And usually we'll do ordainments at about that time as well. So if one of our members has passed their clergyship tests and whatnot, we will ordain them. We do ordainments 2 times a year, one at Walpurgis, one at Halloween. This year, if we have enough people show up here at the manor, last year they had a really big, the town here had a big gathering, and our house, Firethorn, is at the center of town, and there's a park right across the street. And they had a haunted house and everything going. One of the things that we will be publishing in the Red Grimoire at the end of the year is a ritual that we're hoping to debut at right around Halloween time during this event, and it's called the Invocation of Dracula. And literally, we don't get public with our stuff very often, and we don't get political with it, but this ritual can be seen as a political statement, as well as a destruction ritual and a public display as well. So it is a ritual literally where the priest takes on the personification of Dracula, both the vampire as well as the 13th century Wallachian prince, and holds court. And life-size dummies, either be them skeletons or whatnot, people will be brought before him. These can be political figures. It can be seen as political satire. They'll be brought before him and a court of vampires, like a royal court, and he'll cast judgment on them. And then, various tortures or whatnot will be performed on the dummy. And then at the end of it, everybody marches the dummies outside. Tortures can also happen outside, but literally outside to a designated secure spot. We're hoping to possibly do it in the front yard, where all these people going to the event across the street will be able to see, and a performance will be basically put on for them, resulting in each dummy's inevitable impalement on large spikes, creating a force for the impaled.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, we definitely enjoy having fun here. We do pumpkin carving. All the pumpkins are carved here, and they are used in, the best ones are used in the high mass, and any extras that don't get carved, we save them and we carry them as long as we can, even up to Yuletide and further. We had a pumpkin last this year all the way up to July, from Halloween time last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time.
And we have one pumpkin that is still alive from last year, and it's sitting in our kitchen perfectly fine.
Wow.
And it's not rotting or anything. And it's a little white pumpkin.
And so if people are interested in that, how can they get in touch with you? On your website?
Yes, you can actually get in touch with us through our website. We have an email up there. If you're on Facebook, you can reach out to us through Facebook via our public page, or if you're part of any of our groups or see any of our known clergy in any of the groups, you can reach out to our clergy and talk to them. You know, there's myself, there's King Blackfire, there's Abaddon, you know, and there's a bunch of us out there. If you know anybody who is a member of STS, you can talk to them. They can put you in touch with us. The easiest way is to just go to our website and just look for our email address and send us an email.
Excellent. And I'll put the links down in the description down there so people can contact you. A question that I ask everyone during an interview is, if there's a person out there right now and they're shopping for religion, they're looking for something to believe in, something to be a part of, what would you say to them about STS?
Look to yourself. Your religion should never be you converting to it. You should always be adopting a religion that best reflects you as you are. If your religion does not reflect you yourself without changing anything, that's not the religion you need to be in. Now, you can change your personal beliefs. You can change how you are over time. And if your religion no longer reflects how you personally believe and feel, then find one that does. You know, Satanism, you and I both know, Satanism is not for everybody. For most people, it's transitory. There's very few Satanists out there that actually stay in it for any real length of time. You know, I know you've been around for a long time. I've been around since the mid 2000s, early 2000s as a Satanist, and I haven't shifted out of it. And there's a few other people that I know, you know, that can say the same thing. One person who I know had been in it for the longest time. She was an ONA member, and I think we all know the name Chloe Ortega. She just left Satanism completely.
Is that right?
Yep, she's no longer ONA. She's no longer White Star Acceptance. She's not doing any of that. She got into a relationship where she's really happy, and I'm really happy for her. A mutual acquaintance of ours, you know, shared this information with me, and she's living her life away from Satanism now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey that is ever evolving, you know.
No. Another person who left Satanism, you probably recognize this name, Avenger Satanist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he created Cthulhu Cult years ago. You can still find the books if you look online.
Absolutely. They come and they go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one last question for you. Is there anything that you want to tell people about? Any news or anything upcoming that we haven't talked about that you want to make people aware of?
I don't know how publicly far known it is, but STS is one of these organizations that is actually growing. We're working on getting our legal documentation squared away. We're working on, you know, doing this, that, and the next thing. We are about to I mean, it's taken us years to do it. We used to not do it, but we're about to. We're about to actually start implementing membership cards, finally. And one thing that we have done that no other organization, excuse me, I'm ducking out of sight here, no other organization has ever deigned to do is we brought back the cloven hook.
Nice. Very nice. I was looking at that on your website.
Yep, you can actually buy physical copies from the website. You just go to our website, click on the Cloven Hoof link, and it's right down there at the bottom. It'll take you to the private Lulu page. But this has actually gotten Stanton LaVey's approval. He actually, yep. So one of the things that we have an understanding of is that the LaVey family is the ones who actually have all the publishing right to LaVey's original works. And, you know, I did my research on how I could publish this without stepping on anybody's toes. And I showed it to Stanton a few days ago. Literally, it was my birthday. I was on the 11th. And he loved it. He thought it was great. And I asked him, you know, could we possibly at some point in time get some back issues from you? Because Stanton is the curator of all of LaVey's documentation, including every single previous copy of the Cloven Hoof. And he said, yes, we could.
Nice.
Find down the future. So very possibly you can expect future different future back issues. And this is all hand done. I don't know how well you can see it there.
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, that's very nice.
Satire going in there, and
yeah,
a little bit of a. I don't know if I can show you that.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to buy the issue to see Lady V, and that's who's on the cover. It's Lady V, and she is a wonderful woman. One of our grotto masters put us in contact with her, and she is our centerfold. So yeah, you can check out her pictures, and these are pictures that she hasn't released really anywhere else. They are kept private, and she gave them to us to publish in this.
Nice, nice, a very, very nice looking woman there. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Lucifer, thank you very much for spending some time with me tonight.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on.
And again, I'll put the links down in the description. Go over and check it out. And
if you ever want to come to one of our events, just hit me up, and you know, come on up, bring friends. More the merrier.
I may take you up on that one day. Absolutely.
One of the missions of STS is to actually bridge a lot of the gaps that were made back 10, 15 years ago, during the time when everybody was at each other's throats. You know, we call that the age of Andros, from the time that Anton LaVey died up until 2020, when we opened up our doors. So, you know, how the Church of Satan, they have it listed as the age of Satan. We stopped Age of Satan at October 29th, 1997. And from that point on, it was the age of Andros. And we stopped Age of Andros October 29th, 2020, when we opened up our door. And now we'll call it the Age of Lucifer. One of our missions is to literally bridge those gaps between old rivals and, you know, open up line of communications. We don't have to all like each other, but if we can work together for a common cause, well, we can do some pretty amazing things. I mean, we see what the atheists have done with Satanism, with Church of Satan and TST. Well, what happens when the theists all start working together?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with this series of interviews, is just expose people to different organizations, to let people know that there are different people out there and what they're doing, and how to be involved. So
yeah,
perfect. All right. Well, for those viewers and listeners, thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight. This has been Aleister Nacht. Hail Satan.
Ave Satanas, Rege Satanas, Hail Satan.